On this episode of the Dudes and Dads podcast, we talk with our good friend Gil Michel about racial reconciliation in our country.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Hey there, Andy. How we doing?
Oh man, it's
a
that's
thing.
about it.
It's a thing. Guys, welcome back to the Dudes and Dads podcast. Thank you for joining us in the ongoing saga that is 2020. Man, oh man.
Wow.
We have a lot of things to cover, Andy.
Can we just skip the rest of this year?
You know what? Let's just fast forward. 2021, here we come.
All right.
Guys, thanks for being back with all of us. Andy and I are so glad to have you here. Very excited about our guest that is with us this time around, our good friend Gil Michel. Gil, I'll just give you a little preview. Gil is a brother from another mother. We love him dearly. Good friend, part of our church network. He pastors that church downtown. That is actually...
That's actually the name.
The name.
It is.
You know, for the longest time, people would be like, that church downtown. I'd be like, what
church are you talking about?
That's literally that church
yeah.
downtown. In beautiful South Bend, Indiana. He and his wife, Marquito, are just partner leaders there. So grateful for them. But they have learned so much, I think, about what it means to be active leaders in a city, and also have really been a big part of my learning journey, really in recent weeks here, as just things have taken a real turn in our country, Andy. If you
have.
If you haven't noticed, we were joking earlier. I'm like, man, this year is one big dumpster fire, and Andy's like, no, literally, there's dumpster fires. It's actually going on. So normally we would do, our What's Brewing. We do this all our stuff, but we're just going to
get in it tonight.
We're going to jump in.
All right.
We're going to ask questions. We're going to have a conversation.
So, Gil, welcome to the show. We're honored to have you here chatting with us tonight. First off, let's talk here. Dad stats, who you are, marriage, kids, all that good stuff. Give us the information, sir.
Yeah. See, my social security number.
Okay, not that good stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Gil Michel. I live here in South Bend, Indiana. Been here now for about 20 years, and came here after being born and raised for the first 20 something years of my life in Brooklyn, in Queens, in Long Island, New York, and so. Brooklyn raised, and married to Marquito. We've been married, good gracious alive. This year will make 8 years. We have a son, Christian, who is 6 years old.
And adorable.
Yeah, thanks. I was previously married, and so I have a daughter from previous marriage. My daughter, Jolie, is 20. She'll be 24 in September. And she is a master's in her second year. Well, she's just about finishing her first year master's student at Northwestern University in Chicago, and ultra proud of her.
Yes,
well.
yes. And she's in mental health, correct? Is this?
Oh, therapy.
Therapy. Yeah.
Therapy.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I just talked to her the day before yesterday, and she's oh, Dad, I'm doing all my appointments and my clients. I'm like, clients? She was, 10 clients. I'm like, you what? So, yeah, she's doing amazingly well and getting quite the experience. Yeah.
Amazing. And then Gil, not only you pastor, but then you also head up the Caleb Group, which what exactly? What exactly is that?
We're a small group. 2 out of 12.
Beautiful.
We take mountains and we conquer lands. No, we. People who don't read their Bibles are like, what?
Yeah. Look it up, people.
Anyway, the Caleb Group is actually a small accounting firm. Actually got the name from the Bible, Caleb Group, because even though we're small, we like to compare ourselves with the big boys. So we focus on small business accounting, and also have a whole wing that we do just churches. So we have a website called Church Accounting Services, and we service mostly small, medium-sized churches throughout the country as well.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Which we know that those small, medium churches, they need good financial care. That is
Yes.
It has been my experience that there are a lot of small churches that do not have good financial care, and they put themselves in some bad places. So
I agree.
yeah. So that's we're grateful for that service as well. Gil, so my friend, first of all, I just very personally, so gosh, it's like, where do we start with everything that has been going on? It is it feels like just continues to escalate. There are more layers that are being added to this, but really back at we could move back to how far should we go back to when we started having the conversation about yet again the Aubrey murder, and then we had Mr. Floyd's murder, and we have all these pieces, and this is sort of where the conversation began. For me personally, I just started to be like, I just had this moment where I'm like, things are way worse than I thought they were, and
I think I would agree the same thing for me too. It's like, I mean, growing up as a white guy, like, I don't think I stopped to look at that and realize just how bad they were until recently.
Yeah. So there was that moment of crisis where you're like, I have failed to recognize the real situation we're living in. What do I do now? And so I do the only thing that I can think. I call all my black friends and I say, help me, quite honestly, because I recognize that there's just some gaps in my understanding or a sense of I don't know what to do next now that I'm coming to this place. And so even as I reached out to my friend Clarence, who was pastoring in this area and is now he's moved up to Wisconsin, which Clarence is used to cold weather, but it's just going to get man. I'm sorry, I'm scared for him. But as I reached out to my friends, other these black leaders, and just basically said, I want to understand, I want to learn, I just really have this sense that I need to catch up on some things, and then just got in touch with you guys, and have just kind of what it feels like kind of eavesdropped into the conversations you and your wife have been having with a larger community, and which has been incredibly helpful, let me just say. And for all of you, Gil and Marquito have done, there's several like short videos and other kind of conversation points on their social media, and we'll link to all their good information. But Gil, I'm just wondering, what do you, on the big picture, because we want to get to how, like, for you guys personally, but on the big picture, what are you noticing right now? What do you see as, like, if you're thinking about a way forward for our country right now, kind of big picture, what do we need to do? And I'm asking you like you're like the president of the United States or something, but like, what, from your perspective, what do we got to deal with? Yeah, I know, right? Wow. I know.
Yeah. What do we have to deal with? Well, it's interesting. I read an article by a pastor. I believe he was in Minnesota as well, but maybe St. Paul. And the woman, the female woman, white woman, who was asking a black pastor, "Hey, what conversations are you having with your church? Can you share with me some of the conversations you're having with your mostly black congregation?" And he went, "Nope." I went, "Wait, maybe I read that wrong." I'm having two sets of conversations, quite honestly. Like he said, he was really honest about it. I'm having conversations with people in the black community, people who are black, and I'm having another conversation with white people. And so when you say, what do we have to do? Well, I think the one thing we all have to do is continue to have conversations. And I think you probably heard that me saying that
Yep.
A number of times on the platforms I've been on, is that we have to have conversations, because we have to have them, because what I'm realizing is sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So even just now in the introduction, when you're like, some things I just didn't realize as a white person, and I'm hearing more and more people say that, and I go, you don't? How could you not? And this is not a slight. This is not a slam against you.
Yep.
But with Google and YouTube and all the resources around us, it's like, how could you not know? And so Sunday, I talked about a conversation Marquito, my wife, had with a good friend, someone she considers a really good friend. And she said, I didn't know Black people were this upset about things. And so we talked about it after the fact, after the phone call. And she said, Gil, I don't know. And I go, part of me believes her. Like, I want to believe that she just didn't know.
Sure.
But there's a part of me that says, but I think a part of white America doesn't want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's that proverbial sweeping stuff under the rug. And we swept it under the rug as a nation for so long that it's just this big lumpy thing in the middle of the living room, and everyone is tripping over it. Mm-hmm. Every couple of years, before Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, it was Mike Brown, it was Sandra Bland, it was Philon Castro. It's been happening over. We keep tripping over what we keep trying to sweep under. And I've talked to a number of people about why now it's so important. Why is it coming to such a head now? And there are a lot of maybe different thoughts about that. But I think the number one thing we have to do is have conversations about this subject. Have it with your white friends, have it with your family around the dinner table. And you might be very shocked about what comes up in those conversations. I've had conversations with people that I thought I knew, and they said things that I never thought they would say. I still love them, but I do have a little side eye going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you really think? That's how you think.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. So it's challenging on a lot of levels, but I think first and foremost, everyone needs to have conversations. And then really, really educate yourself. Mm-hmm. Dig in, and don't just hear things from maybe a person who thinks like you all the time, but really seek to understand. Do the research, watch the hour-long interviews, and just understand what it's going on for white America, what's going on in the heart of your other brothers and sisters. And then for people who are Black, a lot of us are like, wow, feels good to be acknowledged. And to somehow, because when Black people have been saying this for years, and to finally feel like a lot of people are hearing, is it's almost sort of this new phenomenon, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And so I'm maybe not speaking so much for myself, but I feel like I am speaking for a segment of America where, like, those of us in the conservative white evangelical circle, right? Y'all know who you are. There's been so much pushback, because I've heard this from people, where the politicizing of race has been going on for long enough, where it's like, okay, I hear people from a different political opinion talking about race, but because they are of a different political opinion, I don't know what I can trust from them. Because I think I think this party has been using Black people for their platform. Because for me, quite honestly, Gil, and you just tell me what you think, I think we should have fixed this problem a long time ago. A lot of governmental ink has been spilled to try to deal with race stuff, and we've had Democrats in office, we've had Republicans in office, we had all this. I don't know how serious people have actually, they've talked about it in their political platforms and all, but it's like, is anybody actually serious about this, or are they just using, the issue of race or reconciliation or whatever to get votes? Is that a fair question?
It's a fair question. It's not even a question. It's a fact.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black people have been used as pawns for the longest, and this is just strictly my opinion. This is probably not the thought of or the opinion of most Black community, but Black people have been used kind of as political pawns for a long time, and it's probably way too much to unpack on a podcast like this. But I think there's blame on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's blame on both sides because I think the issue of race is not the baby of just sort of the quote unquote Black the Democratic Party, which as in recent history has been sort of where the Black vote has been populated. But I think there's blame on both sides of the aisle, and because it's really not a political issue, it really is a race issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and so. And there's racist Democrats, there's racist Republicans, bigoted Democrats, just like bigoted Republicans. And you let people talk for long enough, the truth will come out.
Yeah.
It's happened with, in my opinion, it's happened with Trump. It's happened with Biden.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened with a lot of people. You just let people talk long enough, and they will literally trip over their own words.
Yeah.
Because it really is a race issue. I don't think it's a political issue at all.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, and for us as, I don't know, again, I'm just going to say it again. It's a good time to be an Anabaptist, y'all, because here's the deal. We're trying to, I mean, I am trying to rescue I feel like I am trying to rescue with the people that are in my circle that are under, that are listening to me as a spiritual leader. I feel like I'm trying to constantly rescue the conversation away from, the politics of all of it, and because it's like, okay, guys, if the gospel is true, and there is no man, woman, young, old, black, white, free, whatever, if this has been fundamentally made true, then we need, that's what our conversation needs to be about. That's what our actions need to be about. I don't care where you stand politically. In fact, I'm suspicious of the entire political enterprise to even solve this, because ultimately it's a heart thing. Right. I mean, isn't it, Gil?
It absolutely is. And so people ask, man, we should have dealt with this a long time ago. Well, how? Are we going to deal with it from the political side? A lot of laws have been passed. It's been over 40 years since Dr. King was assassinated, since the March on Selma, Bridge on Selma. It's been years since slavery, quote unquote, ended. But we see things being switched and transformed and moved into new things. After slavery, it was the sharecropping, it was Jim Crow, it was this, it was that, it was lynchings, then it's redlining, it's this and that. It's like, so where does it stop? So it takes on new forms. It's like trying to get ahead of a wave. Racism has changed its face, it's changed its politics, it's changed many times its methods, but at the root of it, it's never changed.
That's very good. Going back, I just wanted to say that you'd mentioned about having conversations with our family around the dinner table, and I know that that's one of the things that my wife and I have really taken this last week and just had conversations with our kids, because our kids, we live in the middle of the country. Like, we don't live in the city. Like, our trash guy is an African-American guy. That's about the only that they see. And so for them, like, we've taken this opportunity and just had conversations, and it's been interesting to see their responses, and to some point, it's almost like they don't see the racism. Like, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, they're still not young enough that they've not been taught by the world any other way. And so it's good to have these conversations now so that they know, like, there's stuff going on and there's hate in this world, and so that they can name that and see that and not be ignorant to that.
Gil, I'm wondering, and obviously, Christian he's little yet, he's young, and this is where it kind of gets, we've had this conversation about the national conversation, but there is there's the living room conversation that we're all having to have. What, and this is what I and I hope those that are listening, I'm really interested in what the current conversation you and Marquito are having with Christian, and what you foresee the conversation will be like with him as he gets older, because I'm guessing that it just the scope of it increases as he ages, I would assume.
Absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some things just because he's 6 that we're not going to say, but you probably heard this in the talk that Marquito and I had recently online. She used an example of, there's some kids right next door. A little boy who's Christian's age, who lives next door. He's white. And he's six years old. He had the little brother is 3. Some other boys were outside playing with Nerf guns. Well, Marquito said, Christian said, can I play outside with them? And sure, you can play out there. It took a minute. We're getting ready to have dinner, but yeah, go outside and play. When she turns around, she sees Christian with the gun in his hand, running around going, pew, 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 pew,
Mm-hmm.
And she lost it. She ran outside. You would have thought he got hit by a car. Get that gun out of your hand. You don't have the luxury of playing with a toy gun outside. Why? Because of Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Ohio, who's playing cops and robbers in a park. Someone calls the police on this 11-year-old boy. The police officer shoots him down in cold blood because he's playing with a toy gun in the park. We don't have that luxury. And so I wish I didn't have to have that talk with Christian.
Sure.
But unfortunately I do. It's going to be the same talks my father actually gave me. My father had a very interesting, I'm Haitian American. My dad is from Haiti. So when he came here, he didn't just face discrimination because he was Black. He was also from Haiti, coming from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, coming into New York, and smart as, if not smarter, than some of the people he was working with, doing accounting, training those people so that they can then become his supervisor. So I already know that raising and enculturating a young Black boy in America has to have additional tools. I have to tell Christian, I don't want him to just be a good student because so he can be a good student. I'm telling him he has to be a good student because he has to be a good student. You have to, speak with great diction and use proper grammar. You have to write well. My father said this, Gil, or Junior, I'm a junior. He goes, Junior, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far as your white counterparts. Know that. But don't ever think that you are any better or any less than they are. But here's the reality, Gil. You're going to have to work twice as hard. And so I'm going to tell Christian, I'm going to give him that talk, but I'm also going to lace that conversation with a lot of grace and the favor that I also know that's on his life. So I'm going to come at it with a different perspective and with the God card, as a friend of mine says. And so it's not going to be as hard-edged as that. But I have to arm my son with some very real realities about the world we're in. And of course, it's going to be age appropriate based on where he is. But they're going to be very, very necessary conversations, unfortunately.
Yeah. We have friends who have an adopted son who is Black, who is a runner, and he's not. I'm dead, and I like. It just like this is the reality. They have told him that he can't run in their neighborhood right now because also in their neighborhood there's been some break-ins recently, and they're like, we're not putting you in that spot.
Right.
And I have to be honest, previously to all of this, I would have thought y'all are overreacting. Like you're creating this kid to be, and I think this, I've heard this sort of sentiment. You're creating this kid of color to be overly cautious or fearful or whatever. And then we have seen what has unfolded recently, and it's like, I don't think it's so crazy anymore. That seems like wise parenting to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm Gil, I'm just assuming you feel that, obviously, and I've picked up on this, the tension of having to tell your kid you're going to have to work harder and not get as far, knowing that as your child gets older, I mean, that is a prime, like, no matter what child you told that to, regardless of color, if you just told them that basic, like, hey, you junior, no matter what, are going to have to work twice as hard to get half of the distance, it's kind of a ripe field for anger and bitterness. Like, the kid can go, a child can grow up, and that can be a really hard pill to swallow, like, no matter who you are. And then when the fact is, oh, by the way, that's true because just of the color of your skin, I just wonder, like, helping a kid navigate that reality seems really tough. Obviously.
You know what? I would say that if I didn't get the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
That my father also built in us, because some people will say, man, that can really, man, a child can develop a victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't the only thing he told me. It was
Yeah.
one of the things he told me.
Mm-hmm.
He also told me, so you're as smart as any. I graduated top of my class in elementary school. I was in National Honor Society. I did really well, because I think my father also, he did both sides. He didn't do either or. He didn't raise us to be angry young black men. He raised us, me and my two brothers, to be very astute about the world we live in.
Yeah.
The other side of that is, I grew up in the 70s where you had shows like All in the Family with Archie Bunker. You got the Jeffersons. So it's so weird. I'm like, man, how would those shows translate today? Because they were so out there for the 70s. And so you just very aware of the world you lived in. And I don't know if just because they were getting used to that freedom and that, I don't know what it was, but I didn't grow up with a complex. I just grew up very, very aware.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference. Christian right now is probably as confident as any kid. Sometimes a little bit too confident, but I also think what I want him to be is confident, but I also want him to be knowledgeable. And when we've watched him in the playground, but we've gone into certain places and we see it. We watch how he will go into a playground and maybe how other parents will shield their children or just little things. And so we didn't explain that to him at 3 and 4 years old. But as he begins to get older, we are going to have those conversations with him. And there are going to be some people who don't like you. You know why? Because your skin is brown. Mm-hmm. And I can already see his face like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to explain. Problem. That's just hard to explain, I mean, to a kid to understand that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm and that's the part of the thing that I just want people to understand is that the conversation that you have explained that your father had with you and that you are having with Christian, that seems to be pretty commonplace. That is kind of a cultural reality for many, many families.
Yep.
Of it's going to be different for you, and I just know within certain spheres within white folks, the whole thing, like the whole idea of like you have to have, like, there's this sense of what is it? Like they're incredulous to the idea that you're having these conversations about, like, just know automatically that you're going to be treated different. People don't want to just fundamentally believe that. They just want to believe, like, you don't need to have that conversation with your kid. Everybody can be treated equal, and if they just grow up and live life, they'll see that, if they're a person of character, that it'll all work out in the end.
Well, and I was even thinking, Joel, like, I've told my kids when they're like, hey, I want to be XYZ, and I'm like, do it, you can do it,
right?
And like that doesn't, I mean, that for you and a lot of people of color, that doesn't happen. Like, you can't just say do anything you want. Like you were saying there, you have to work twice as hard and get half as far as the white counterpart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Gil, a lot of other and I should say, we can learn a lot from our kids in general. Like, I love watching my kids interact with other, like, so here in Goshen, we are school system's 57% Hispanic. So My kids are the minority in their school, which is a really interesting thing. I mean, it's just totally an interesting thing of, by the way, they're completely oblivious to it. This is normal for them.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's their new norm. Their normal.
That's the normal. And, but the thing that I really struggled following, when the video with George Floyd came out, I really struggled. So my two oldest sons are 9 and 10.5. And I was like, I need to have a conversation with them. I really struggled. It's like, okay, what do I show them? What do we, whatever. And I was prayerful about it. And I'm like, you know what? My kids see lots of things already. I'm going to show them the arrest. I'm going to show them the arrest video, and it was just like, so I just sat them down and I said, guys, this is, because by the way, we don't have TV anymore. So like they had not seen news. They had not seen anything. And I just said, I just had the sense of, okay, they cannot not know about this. So I sat him down. I showed him the video. Now, about a minute into the video, my eldest son, Aaron, says, like, before he went unconscious, my eldest son says, "They're going to kill him, aren't they?" Like, just knew that.
Wow.
And if a 10-year-old can figure out the dynamics that were going on there, that to me was like, we all can, as adults, can open our eyes. Like,
right.
So because I said nothing. I gave no, because Aaron was like, well, why are all these people why are these people protesting? I was like, well, some things have happened. This is one of them. I'm going to show you this video. So I gave like very little context for any of it. And then he's like, oh, I get it. I get why people are mad. And it's like, okay. Well, spoken by a 10-year-old. That's pretty straightforward and basic. And I just think, like how we're parenting our kids right now in terms of the conversations, in terms of coming to terms, in terms of recognizing Black families are having conversations with their kids to keep their kids safe that white families will never have to have right now. I mean, Gil, will you have a conversation with Christian someday about if he ever gets pulled over by the police?
Absolutely. I had the same conversation as well as a teenager.
Right. My parents never talked to me about that. Right?
Wow.
Like my parents never told me what to do when I got pulled over by the cops because they fundamentally knew it was going to be fine.
Because for a white male, the police are there for law and order.
Right.
And they're an advocate.
Right.
We see the relationship as adversarial.
Right.
And so let me tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
I was in South Bend. I just came back from New York, helping my brother in his tax office in New York. I come home, I get some messages, I run over to a client, I'm coming back, I'm in Mishawaka, coming home. I'm coming back to my office after picking up some paperwork from a client. I come back, I'm driving down the street, and quite honestly, I probably was going a little faster than I should. But it wasn't like ridiculous.
Right.
So I see a police officer driving opposite me. He turns around, he flashes his lights. I pull, there's no shoulder on the road. So I drive up maybe another half a block and I turn into a gas station. The guy is screaming at the top of his voice. His gun is already drawn. When he approaches my window, I put my window down. I said, "What's the problem, officer?" Curses me out. I can't tell you what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
He puts the barrel of the gun to my head. I look in my rearview mirror. There are 4 additional cars behind him. There's another car, officer on the passenger side of my car with his gun drawn. I'm a grown man. I'm born and raised in New York. There's not a whole lot of stuff that scares me.
Yeah.
I was scared that day.
Yeah.
Let me add, this didn't happen on a dark street, on a dark corner.
Right.
It happened at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Yeah.
The guy is screaming at me.
Yep.
I almost relieved myself right in my seat.
Yeah.
I was terrified because what did I do?
Yeah.
Did I go 7, 8, 9, 10 miles over the speed limit? Is this warranted for that? A forged check? Is that so? So when you, and as well adjusted as I am, you put someone in that situation, you don't know how it's going to go down.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And when you've been sort of conditioned and enculturated, it's not even acculturated from my family to think that we're less than, but when the pervasive or the pervading attitude in the main culture is that, Gil, you're a threat. You're a big black man, and you threaten people. Your very existence threatens people, scares people, and you have to actually work from that place. Man, it's a little bit of a that's the twice the work.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to do what you already do. Plus, you also got to, your other second job is to also dispel the myth that people have about you.
And manage other people's emotions about you.
Exactly.
Like that is like that's well, we pastors have to do that every once in a while for other reasons, but that's emotionally exhausting to have to live in that reality. And again, I just hope that's something that people hear. Like, and Gil, I mean, I've been with you a few times when you and Marquito are the only persons of color in the room. That, you know, and you're if you're speaking or sharing or anything like that, I do wonder, are there sensitivity is not even the right word. I mean, I'm guessing you recognize when you're the only black person in the room. Do you notice that?
Not hard to tell.
Yeah, right. So like, and you know, we Swiss German folk, Gil and Marquito have engaged with our various faith communities in our church network many times. It's been really good. But you know, it's a Swiss German group, so not a lot of color. But we do have some Latino communities that have joined with us. But it's I wonder when you're walking into those situations, though, are there things that you have learned? Like, do you feel that you're ever fully yourself with those kind of groups where it's like you're the person of color in the room, you're the black guy talking, you know, to all these folks? Is there something about you that you feel you're holding back either consciously or subconsciously? Because I know if the tables were turned, I don't know. I think I would feel that way personally. Like, can I, you know, how do I be me in this setting? I guess.
Yeah. You know, that's a really good question. I think I do think that, I mean, as far as it's sort of different levels to it, I guess. There's not a whole lot of people, you know, within our network that I'm like, hey, or have a lot maybe in common with cultural things. It's probably not, no.
Yeah. But
I think one of the reasons and one of the things that caused us to make the decision to be a part of the network is that we didn't feel any those apprehensions. We felt genuine love from the people, the churches that were involved. And so it wasn't, and believe me, had we felt an inkling of that, we probably would, we more than likely would not have joined.
Yeah. Or that you were, or that you were the token black people in the,
absolutely,
which has always been, because I'll be honest with you, with other groups, I've always had this thing of like, okay, I look at all their leadership. Their leadership is primarily white. They have people of color that are partnering with them, but they're not. It just seems like a token gesture or like a political gesture sort of thing. Yeah. And I really can say from our perspective, it's like we believe that the network of churches that we're a part of should represent what the kingdom of God looks like. Just period, because that's a gift to the church. Yeah. I think
it is. Yep.
So yeah. Andy, what other Gil like just dropped some real knowledge and on me, and I'm kind of reeling mentally right now.
Well, and I think for me, I just want to say to every person of color that, like, I'm sorry for the way that I either on purpose or on purpose, on purpose, not
on
on
purpose.
I just made up a word, but like treated them differently from any other person that I know. So I want to apologize to everybody that I know and don't know that I may have treated differently.
Yeah,
but.
and that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of there's just a lot of I'm sorry that needs to be said, just genuinely said. And Marquito's been talking a lot about white guilt recently, and I'm like navigating that a little bit. Like, I don't hear the black community asking white folks to feel guilty. That's not the request, or to feel to be ashamed, though some should be ashamed. But rather to have conversations and be willing to open our eyes to the reality. I think the hardest pill for me to swallow, and Gil, when I initially messaged you and just said kind of the sense of shame that I have felt is, it is hard for me to deal with the fact that I have thrived in a system in which other people are not thriving. And when you recognize that, it's like, what do you do with that? It's like because I think I can thrive in, I think I should be able to thrive in systems and in cultures where everyone is thriving. I think that would be a good thing. But it's like, what does it mean when I can do really well in a system that other people can't do well in at all? How do I even navigate that? Because I mean, middle class 6'4" white Joel, I don't have a lot of problems, quite honestly. There's not a lot of things that get in my way if I want to do stuff, just quite frankly. Like, that's it, and yet someone of a different situation, whether it be socioeconomic, racial, or whatever, that's not true for them. I think we just have to recognize that. And that's not me being politically liberal or Marxist or some sort of communist to say, that things are not equal.
No.
Right? I mean, they're just not equal.
The truth of the matter is that people are going to, because here's what we get a lot, and we've had so many phone calls in the past 8-9 days. And mostly some of our white friends were going, tell me what to do. Yeah. I don't even know what to say, and da 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 da.
Yep.
It's like, just take a few minutes and be honest with yourself. Like, are there ways that, like, the system is kind of set up for white males to benefit the greatest from our society? Okay, but it doesn't mean that every white person, every white guy walking around is a racist. It doesn't mean that. It just means that, man, in areas where you can speak out against it, and when you recognize, say something, call it out. I'm seeing a lot. I've been watching some of these news. I'm watching protests, and it looks like I'm going, it looks like there's more white people there than black.
Yeah. Yep.
That to me is a huge win. Mm-hmm. And so, again, like, you going back to the whole thing you said about Marquito not wanting to instill white guilt on people. I don't want to see white guilt. I want to see white repentance.
Amen.
I want to see a change of mind.
Amen.
I want you to say, man, I'm going to actively talk to my children about what racism looks like, about what prejudice looks like, about when your friends start talking like this, you speak up and say, I don't think like that. And you shouldn't either. Teach them to be courageous and to stand up and to stand out. I don't want white people cowering around me going, I feel so bad about what you've been through. It's like, thank you. But that's not where it should really end. It should be, I'm going to actively do my part to make sure that this thing doesn't persist for another generation.
Right.
And when I see it raise its ugly head, I'm going to deal with it.
Yep. Absolutely.
That is more valuable than a lot of tears, because a lot of people are seeing what this means now to a lot of their black friends, and I'm like, man, I had no idea it was like this bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the real thing is change.
Yeah.
Is how am I going to affect change going forward?
Yep. Yeah. I appreciate it. I was watching, let's see here. I was watching a news update with what was the protests that are going on in Atlanta. And just a great 9 minutes of kind of an impromptu speech from Killer Mike. I don't know if you've seen his community leader in the area as well as a recording artist. And, he just said, he's like, and his whole point was, and he has many family members that are in law enforcement.
Yep.
And he's
His
like,
father was.
yeah. And he goes, I love the police. I appreciate what they do. And he was really trying to just really articulate a peaceful approach toward protest. But he was also saying, do not spend energy on violence. We need to come together collectively. And then he said, we need to strategize. We actually need to come with a plan forward, because all the boo-hooing and all of that at the end of the day doesn't get things really changed. Like, me just feeling bad about stuff isn't what, that's not what changes people. I mean, even as we're parenting, just getting my kids to feel bad about stuff that they do doesn't get them to do the thing that they ought to do moving forward. And
right.
I appreciated that word. And he's like, we need to come together. We need to plan forward. That's where we need to be spending our energy, and not just kind of catharting through all of this. Yes, there are tears. Yes, there are terrible things that have happened. Yes, the families that have lost a loved one, they are rightfully mourning through all of this. Our country should mourn through this and repent. And it just seems, to your point on the repentance piece, the real biblical definition of that is a change of mind. It is I was going here and now I am going here, and I am not going back to that thing. And that is the best thing that we can do for our communities. I wholeheartedly agree. So the last thing, Gil, that we do want to touch on is, and I posted this on my Facebook page because I just gotten into it, but you were an early copy, a manuscript reviewer of this book that is out, A Language of Healing for a Polarized Nation, Creating Safe Environments for Conversations about Race, Politics, Sexuality, and Religion. For our evangelical friends, Mark Laberton, he gave some a really important review. But Gil, you were part of kind of the early review people. Your name is in print inside of this book. So
man, when he sent me the
that's special.
Copy, I was like, oh man, my review is inside this book, right next to all these big wigs and yuckity yucks.
That's right. Yeah, I tell people, I'm like, yeah, Gil Michel, I know someone famous. So Gil said this about this book: A Language of Healing is the spirit child of Bob Wayne and Arnita, but it has been my heart cry for the past 12 years. The honest conversational style of this much-needed volume could be what helps to denote the time bomb that seems to be ticking in our over-sensitized and polarized discourse. I can't help but think that this book could be the antithesis of what was done at the Tower of Babel. Solid Old Testament reference. Rather than confound the languages to stop us from moving forward, this work can serve to unite us around a common language that will heal the very ones who need it most. This book came. I mean, what a timing of this book. My goodness, like God's hand was at work, I think, with this. Gil, I don't know if there's anything more you want to. I just want to recommend this book and just say, from your perspective, I mean, what is helpful about this volume? What do you see it contributing to the conversation?
You know what's so funny is I didn't even ask them this, but I saw that the timing in which that the three authors released that book, I really believe it was because they wanted to get ahead of the political conversations that were going to happen coming up to this election season. And boy, you're talking about timely. So now they talking about sexuality and politics and religion and race. And man, how timely. I don't even think they understood what exactly they were doing when they wrote the book. And so I think they were trying to get ahead of the election season and really help people inform how people discuss politics. Now, that's a whole, as my friend would say, that's a whole nother Sunday. But man, the discussion around politics from my white conservative brothers, friends, and and then the liberal ones, it's like, man, all you have to do is it's like grab your popcorn and watch your news feed.
Yeah.
And you can be entertained for hours.
Yes.
And it just seemed as if people were becoming more and more polarized. Even, let me just use this example, and this is nothing against Donald Trump. I saw people when Donald Trump started running for president, and there were other people in the primary, Republican primary. They couldn't stop talking about how bad Trump was. As soon as he became the Republican guy, it's like switch on, switch off. It's like
absolutely
he became, he's Cyrus.
Mm-hmm.
God is gonna have his hand is on him, and I'm like, isn't the guy you called the buffoon 6 months ago?
Right.
Like, I just didn't understand. And people seem to have become much more. They rallied behind their political affiliations more than they did around Christ. And then in the same manner, he's like, yeah, man, Black Lives Matter. But you talk about abortion and other issues that are considered or deemed, Republican hot buttons or hot potatoes. Then they're like, no. Like, wait, I thought lives matter. So you see how people can make their thing their main thing, rather than, as you pointed out earlier, isn't this about the kingdom and about our first allegiances to the Lord? So it's so funny. I'm thinking, man, this is a great book to have out and have people get into really good, meaningful discussions around politics and matters of culture and things of that nature. And man, it became much more applicable for other subjects as well.
Yeah. I'm grateful for it. And Gil moderated a conversation amongst, and the authors are Wayne Jacobson, which that name will ring a bell with some as well, Arnita Willis Taylor and Robert L. Prater. And it's out, it's available, A Language of Healing for a Polarized Nation. I think it'd be a giant win if your church small group got together around this book. I think it'd be a giant win if we could just enter into. I think about some of the faith communities that I've been a part of that were, again, predominantly white, middle class evangelical or whatever, and I just know the tensions and the uneasiness that there is with stepping into that water and beginning to have those conversations. Our leaders really need to have the courage right now just to create space to say, this is what we're going to talk about. I know when I get together with my high schoolers next week, this is the subject. This is going to be the talk, and it's not because I have some sort of political agenda. I just firmly believe that as Christians, we are called to a better way in this area, right? And so we need to talk. We need to talk, y'all. We need to talk and talk to it, because Gil, when I reached out to you earlier, the one thing that struck me when you said is people want to talk, but they don't want to hear.
Right.
They're afraid what might come back, and that's what we have to be willing. We have to really be willing to listen and to hear.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, you're. I was going to say you're sitting right here in front of me now. You're sort of sitting here in front of me now.
You're on the TV in front of Joel,
and you have had these experiences. These things have happened to you. You have had these conversations. This is not made up, hypothetical, racial discourse. This is your life in real time. And I like to think you're a well-balanced, well-adjusted human being. You're not, these are not, and yet your experience is not unique. And so when we start digging in, we see, there are themes here that emerge with how people of color are treated, and right now we're talking by law enforcement, by people in power. We have to be willing to say that that's a thing that's happening, and I just and at the same time, I really believe that the only way forward through any of it is Jesus. Quite honestly, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, whatever. Y'all have had your shot. You've tried to solve these things. We're not where we ought to be. I think Christ is he's the answer. Yeah, I know it sounds super Christian of all of us to Jesus is the answer. Sometimes Jesus is the answer, guys.
Right.
Sometimes the Sunday school answer is the
It's
right
right.
one. It's the right one. So Gil, buddy, man, thank you for just talking with us, and I just hope people have just heard with open hearts and open ears to we're just scratching the surface obviously here, but these are the realities that are around. And you know what, guys, if you don't Gil told me to do this earlier. Well, he didn't tell me, he said this out loud. So if you don't have a black friend, get one. I think you sort of said that, Gil, right? I'm sort of, it's get a friend who comes from a different perspective or has had some different experiences. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think there's a rentablackfriend.com, something like that.
That seems racist too. But anyway, we can joke about that. But I think, like, it has been incredibly helpful to me that I've just had people that I love and respect so much that are people of color that have had all these experiences. And because I know and trust them, it feels like I can actually hear them. Like, I'm able to hear them and hear what they say because I have that relationship with them.
Yes.
And what they do have to say means a ton more to me than just some person speaking on a television screen or whatever. And I think that's the important thing. We need, this is about real lives. This is about real experiences, and we need to acknowledge that. But before we let Gil go, Andy, we have one thing.
One thing.
Now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
All right, so if you've never joined us before, the Pop Quiz is a time that we just ask Gil some random questions that have nothing to do with this conversation that we just talked about, but just some random things.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. See, guys, he's not faking that surprise. That is legitimate surprise.
That's legitimate. Yeah.
That's legitimate. So, Gil, we'll each ask you like 4 or 5 questions, something like that, and it's off the cuff, and we're just looking for the hard hitting answers here. So, good luck to you. May God have mercy on your soul.
You can go first.
Am I going to go first?
You can go
Okay,
first.
Gil, what is your favorite meal that your wife prepares?
Ooh, fried fish.
Great answer.
Where was the first place that you and your wife went on a date?
The first technical date, I guess, would be Heaven on 7th it's in Illinois. Really cool town. Anyway, it's in Illinois. Heaven on 7th.
Good enough. Gil, what's your go-to love song?
There's Nothing Better Than Love by Luther Vandross.
Oh, Luther Vandross. Oh my
man,
gosh.
that's a good one.
Silky.
That's a good one.
Yeah, man.
All right. What is your favorite thing to do with your son?
His favorite thing or my favorite?
Both. Either one.
Oh, his favorite thing is to play the Wii.
All right. What about yours? What is your favorite thing to do with him?
We started playing catch in the backyard with mitts and ball. Yeah, softball.
Good.
Yeah.
Gil, if you were not in doing the ministry, if you were not a pastor, and if you were not an accountant, what do you think what do you fancy you might be doing with your life? What's another alter ego thing that you might have gotten into?
That's very easy to answer.
Ooh.
There was no one who could not have told me that I was not going to be the next Eddie Murphy growing up. So my goal was to be a comedic actor.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, my last question here is, if you could go any place on vacation, what place would it be?
Any place on vacation. I don't know why. I've always wanted to go to Australia.
Okay.
So, Australia.
Joel, do you have a last question for Gil?
Yeah, I did have a question. What was I going to ask?
You lost it.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Gil, if you could have lunch with any Bible character, what would it be? Who would it be?
If I could have lunch with any Bible character?
Yes.
Woo.
If you say, and I'm not going to allow Jesus because that's just whatever.
That's
a churchy answer.
Okay. Man. Can I give one woman and one man?
Sure.
Yes, 100%. We're very egalitarian here, so yes.
The man that I would have lunch with would be Joseph. The woman I'd have lunch with, it would, of course, be in an open setting where other people could see, but it would be Rahab, the harlot.
There we go. Yeah. That seems fair.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for coming out. Well, again, I always say coming out. You're not here. You're online with us. But thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Just having some open and honest conversations. I appreciate that. Joel appreciates that. And I think overall, hopefully that our listeners just can take the things that you said and take them to heart and take a good, honest look at themselves and see if and where they need to change. So, yeah, thanks again for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You can find all of our episodes at dudesanddadspodcast.com. Joel, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. We're not on MySpace, but come out and hang out with us on all of those places. Also, if you want to help support this show, make sure to go out to patreon.com, patreon.com/Dudes and Dads Podcast, where you can get some extra behind the scenes stuff for just a small monthly fee.
That's lovely. And guys, all of the good details of from this show will be over there at dudesanddadspodcast.com. So check it out. Until next time, my friends, grace
and peace.